Welcome back, everyone. Let me ask you something. Have you ever locked your front door, walked away, and then had that nagging feeling, did I really lock it? You are pretty sure you did. But you are not 100% certain. So you go back and check. That is what Domain 6 is all about. Not just assuming your security controls are working, but proving it. According to Mandiant's M-Trends 2026 report, based on incident response data from 2025, the global median attacker dwell time is now 14 days. That is how long attackers sit inside your network before you detect them. For organizations that rely on external notification, like a call from law enforcement, it jumps to 26 days. An attacker could be inside your network for 2 weeks, moving laterally, stealing credentials, exfiltrating data, while your team is still running last quarter's vulnerability scan. You might have the most expensive firewalls, the most sophisticated encryption, and the most detailed policies. But those are just hypotheses. They are assumptions. And assumptions, in security, are dangerous. Domain 6 is called security assessment and testing. But I want you to think of it differently. It is not a checklist. It is not a once-a-year audit. It is the discipline of proving your defenses. It is the difference between hoping you are secure and knowing you are secure. In this video, we are going to cover everything: application security testing, attacker vantage points, vulnerability assessments versus penetration tests, red, blue, and purple teams, immutable logs, synthetic transactions, real user monitoring, SOC reports, KPIs and KRIs, continuous control monitoring, breach and attack simulation, and finally resilience and restitution. Here is how this works. For each concept, I will explain it. Then I will give you questions. I will read them out loud. Pause the video, think about your answer, then come back. I will tell you the right answer and, more importantly, why the wrong answers are wrong. Then I will share the traps that even experienced security pros fall into, and 3 tips to lock the knowledge in. This domain is not about theory. It is about action. It is about proving that your castle actually has walls. Stick with me, and by the end, you will have a complete toolkit for validating your defenses. Let us get started. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, a large retailer had invested millions in their security stack, firewalls, intrusion detection systems, endpoint protection, and a whole security team. They were confident. Then an attacker stole credentials from a third-party vendor. They used those credentials to log into the retailer's VPN, which had no multi-factor authentication. Once inside, they moved laterally for weeks. No one noticed. The retailer only found out when the FBI called. The expensive firewalls never saw the attack, because the attacker did not break through them. They logged in with valid credentials. The assumption that the perimeter was secure was an illusion. You might have the most expensive firewalls, the most sophisticated encryption, and the most detailed policies. But those are just hypotheses. They are assumptions. And assumptions, in security, are dangerous. Look at that number, 11 days. That was the median attacker dwell time a few years ago, based on incident response data. But as you heard earlier, the latest report from Mandiant shows that number has climbed to 14 days as of 2025. For organizations that rely on external notification, it jumps to 26 days. That means for more than 2 weeks, an attacker could be roaming your network, escalating privileges, mapping your infrastructure, and quietly stealing your most sensitive data, all while your team is focused on last quarter's compliance report. That is not a hypothetical scenario. It is the reality for many organizations. That is why Domain 6 exists. Not to check boxes, but to prove your defenses actually work. From a technical perspective, the danger of assumption is that security becomes a static checklist. You check the box that says firewall installed, encryption enabled, IDS deployed. But attackers do not care about your checklists. They look for the gaps. They look for the things you think are secure but are not. From a business perspective, dwell time is directly tied to cost. The longer an attacker stays inside, the more data they steal, the more damage they cause, the higher the regulatory fines. Proving your defenses is not a nice-to-have. It is a financial imperative. Now, let me ask you a question. I will read it, then I want you to pause the video and really think about it. Come back when you are ready. What does attacker dwell time measure? A. The time it takes to break through a firewall. B. The time from initial compromise to detection. C. The time to restore from backups. D. The time to patch a vulnerability. Pause the video. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. The time from initial compromise to detection. Dwell time measures exactly that, how long an attacker remains undetected inside your network. Option A is not correct because dwell time starts after the attacker is already inside. Option C is recovery time, not dwell time. Option D is remediation time, not dwell time. If you got it right, excellent. If not, now you know. Let me ask you another question. A company has a state-of-the-art firewall and intrusion prevention system. An attacker phishes an employee, steals credentials, and logs into the VPN. The attacker then moves laterally for 2 weeks before being discovered. What failed? A. The firewall was misconfigured. B. The assumption that technical controls alone are sufficient without continuous validation. C. The encryption was weak. D. The IDS signatures were out of date. Pause the video. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. The assumption that technical controls alone are sufficient without continuous validation. The company never tested whether their controls would stop an attacker who already had valid credentials. Option A is unlikely because the attacker never touched the firewall. Option C is not relevant, the attack did not involve breaking encryption. Option D could be a contributing factor, but the root cause was the lack of continuous validation. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A security manager says, "We passed our annual audit with 0 findings. We are secure." Which statement best challenges this assumption? A. Audits only test for compliance, not for real-world attack paths. B. Audits are always wrong. C. Audits test only physical security. D. Audits require no documentation. Pause the video. Welcome back. The correct answer is A. Audits only test for compliance, not for real-world attack paths. A compliance audit checks whether certain controls exist, not whether they would stop a real attacker. Option B is false, audits have value. Option C is false, audits can cover many areas. Option D is false, audits require extensive documentation. This is a critical concept, the difference between compliance and security. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company reduces its median dwell time from 30 days to 14 days. What is the most likely security impact? A. Reduced breach cost. B. Increased false positives. C. Longer restoration time. D. Slower network performance. Pause the video. Welcome back. The correct answer is A. Reduced breach cost. Shorter dwell time means attackers are found and ejected faster, which dramatically reduces the cost and damage of a breach. Option B, increased false positives, has no direct relationship. Option C, longer restoration time, shorter dwell time generally leads to faster restoration. Option D, slower network performance, dwell time has no direct impact on network speed. So the correct answer is A. Now, let me share 3 traps that even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1, believing that passing a compliance audit means you are secure. Compliance is a baseline, not a guarantee. Attackers do not follow audit checklists. Trap 2, focusing only on prevention and ignoring detection. No prevention is perfect. You must also validate that your detection controls actually work. Trap 3, assuming that a control that worked last year still works today. Threats evolve. Configurations change. People make mistakes. You must test continuously. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1, shift your mindset from, we have controls, to, we test our controls. Make validation a recurring process, not a one-time event. Tip 2, on the exam, if you see a scenario where a company assumes security based on having controls, the correct answer will often involve validation, testing, or continuous assessment. Tip 3, measure what matters, not just how many controls you have, but how quickly you detect and respond to real attacks. Now that you understand the danger of assumption, let us move to building the right thing versus building it right, the foundation of secure development. Before we dive into testing, we need to clarify a fundamental distinction. You can build the right thing, or you can build the thing right. These are not the same. And if you confuse them, your security program will fail. Let me explain with a story. Years ago, a software company built a new customer portal. They did everything by the book. They followed secure coding standards, they ran static analysis, they did code reviews. They built the thing right. The code was clean. Then they deployed it. Within a week, an attacker found a logic flaw in the business rules, not a coding error, but a flaw in the design itself. The attacker could view other customers' orders just by changing a number in the URL. The company built the thing right, but they built the wrong thing. They never asked the question, does this design actually protect against the threats we care about? From a technical perspective, building the right thing means your architecture and design correctly address the security requirements. It means you have the right controls in the right places. Building the thing right means your implementation of those controls is free of coding errors, misconfigurations, and vulnerabilities. You need both. Missing either one is a failure. From a business perspective, the cost of building the wrong thing is enormous. You can have perfect code, but if the design is flawed, you are still breached. That is why security assessments must start at the design phase, not after the code is written. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video and think. A development team follows secure coding standards, runs static analysis tools, and conducts peer reviews. They produce code with no vulnerabilities. However, an attacker exploits a design flaw that allows access to unauthorized data. What went wrong? A. They built the thing right, but not the right thing. B. They built the right thing, but not the thing right. C. They failed at both. D. The static analysis tool was misconfigured. Pause the video. Welcome back. The correct answer is A. They built the thing right, the code is clean, but not the right thing, the design was flawed. Option B would mean the design was correct but the implementation was flawed, that is not the case here. Option C says they failed at both, but the code was actually clean. Option D says the static analysis tool was misconfigured, there is no evidence of that. So the correct answer is A. Let me ask you another question. A security architect reviews a system design before any code is written. She identifies that the system lacks segregation of duties and has no audit trail for sensitive transactions. Which type of security assessment is she performing? A. Implementation validation. B. Design review. C. Penetration testing. D. Vulnerability scanning. Pause the video. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Design review. She is evaluating the architecture before any code exists. Option A. Implementation validation, happens after code is written. Option C. Penetration testing, is a live attack simulation, usually after deployment. Option D. Vulnerability scanning, is automated scanning of running systems, not design review. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A company spends millions on static analysis tools, dynamic scanners, and penetration testing. They find and fix every technical vulnerability. Yet they suffer a breach because an attacker exploited a logical flaw in how the application handles user roles. What is the root cause? A. The security team did not run enough scans. B. The organization focused on building the thing right, but never validated that they were building the right thing. C. The developers ignored coding standards. D. The penetration test was not authorized. Pause the video. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. The organization focused on building the thing right, fixing coding errors, but never validated that they were building the right thing. The role-based access design was flawed. Option A. More scans would not catch a design flaw. Option C. The code was actually clean. Option D. Not relevant. So the correct answer is B. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company uses a threat modeling framework during the design phase and a separate vulnerability scanning tool in production. The threat model identifies a risk, but the scanner does not detect any issues. Which statement is most accurate? A. The scanner is broken. B. The threat model is wrong. C. The risk is a design flaw, not an implementation flaw, so the scanner would not find it. D. The company should only use the scanner. Pause the video. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. The risk is a design flaw, not an implementation flaw, so the scanner would not find it. Scanners look for coding and configuration issues, not architectural problems. Option A. The scanner is not broken, it is the wrong tool. Option B. The threat model is not wrong, it identified a real risk. Option D is incorrect because you need both. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1. Thinking that if your code passes all scans, your system is secure. Scans do not catch design flaws. Trap 2. Believing that security testing only starts after code is written. The most important testing happens at the design phase. Trap 3. Confusing building the right thing with building the thing right. They are different, and you need both. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1. Always start security assessments with a design review before any code is written. Tip 2. On the exam, if you see a scenario where code is clean but the system is still vulnerable, the answer is almost always a design flaw. They built the thing right, but not the right thing. Tip 3. Use threat modeling to catch design flaws before they become costly to fix. Now that you understand the difference between building the right thing and building it right, let us move to the application security pipeline, SAST, DAST, and IAST. Now let us talk about the 3 major types of application security testing. You will see them on the exam, and you will use them in the real world. They are SAST, DAST, and IAST. Each has a different place in your development pipeline, and each finds different kinds of problems. Imagine you are building a house. The way you would inspect the blueprints, test the finished house, and monitor the walls while people live inside, that is exactly how these 3 testing methods work. Let me define each one. SAST, Static Application Security Testing. This is like having an architect review your blueprints before you pour any concrete. You look at the design, the materials list, the structural plans, but only on paper. That is white box testing. You see everything. SAST analyzes uncompiled source code at rest, before the application is even running. It finds flaws early, like hard-coded passwords, buffer overflows, or SQL injection patterns in the code. The advantage is speed and early detection. The disadvantage is that it lacks runtime context. It might flag something that looks dangerous on paper but is not actually exploitable in the finished house. DAST, Dynamic Application Security Testing. This is like hiring an inspector to walk through the finished house, testing the doors, the windows, the locks, but from the outside. They do not know how the walls were built, they just test what works and what does not. That is black box testing. DAST runs against a live, running application, from the outside, just like an attacker would. It actively probes the application, sending malformed inputs, testing for injection flaws, checking for misconfigurations. The advantage is that it catches runtime anomalies that a CISSP would miss. The disadvantage is that it can only test what it can reach. If there is a hidden room behind a false wall, the inspector will not find it. IAST, Interactive Application Security Testing. This is like having sensors placed inside the walls while the house is being built. These sensors watch what happens when someone tries to open a door or turn on a light. They see both the inside structure and the outside behavior at the same time. That is gray box testing. IAST places an agent inside the running application, in the memory, in the runtime environment. That agent monitors what actually happens during normal and malicious requests. It can map runtime errors directly back to specific lines of source code. The advantage is accuracy. It combines the inside knowledge of SAST with the runtime visibility of DAST. The disadvantage is that it requires instrumenting the application, which can be complex. From a business perspective, you do not choose one. You use all three at different stages. SAST early in development, when changes are cheap. DAST in staging and production, to test the live system. IAST during QA and testing, for high-accuracy results. Together, they give you a complete picture. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video. Which type of application security testing analyzes uncompiled source code and runs before the application is deployed? A. DAST. B. SAST. C. IST. D. RASP. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. SAST. Like reviewing blueprints before construction, it works on source code at rest. Option A, DAST, runs on a live application. Option C, IAST, also requires a running application with an agent installed. Option D, RASP, is runtime protection, not testing. So the correct answer is B. Let me ask you another question. A security team runs a tool that sends malformed HTTP requests to a live web application to test for SQL injection in cross-site scripting. What type of testing is this? A. SAST. B. DAST. C. IST. D. Code review. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. DAST. Like an inspector testing the finished house from the outside, it actively probes a running application. Option A, SAST, works on source code. Option C, IAST, uses an internal agent, not external probes alone. Option D, code review, is not dynamic. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. An organization uses an agent inside its application's runtime memory. The agent monitors both the code execution and the incoming requests, correlating errors with specific lines of source code. Which type of testing is this? A. SAST. B. DAST. C. IST. D. Vulnerability scanning. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. IAST. Like sensors inside the walls, it combines the inside view of SAST with the outside view of DAST. Option A, SAST, does not run inside a live application. Option B, DAST, does not have visibility inside the code. Option D, vulnerability scanning, is a broader term that usually refers to network or system scanning. So the correct answer is C. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company uses SAST during development and finds hundreds of potential vulnerabilities. Many are false positives. They then use IAST during QA, which confirms that only a handful of those are actually exploitable in runtime. What is the primary benefit of this combined approach? A. IST replaces the need for SAST. B. IAST reduces false positives by validating SAST findings in a running environment. C. SAST is faster, so they should only use SAST. D. DAST would have been better than both. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. IAST reduces false positives by validating SAST findings in a running environment. Option A is not true. IAST requires a running application. Option C ignores false positives. Option D is not correct. DAST also has false positives and cannot see inside the code. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1, thinking SAST and DAST are interchangeable. They are complementary. SAST finds different issues than DAST. You need both. Trap 2, believing that IAST is always better. IAST provides more accurate results, but it requires instrumenting the application, which may not be possible for third-party or legacy software. Trap 3, running security testing only at the end of the development cycle. SAST should run continuously, as code is written. DAST and IAST should run in staging, not just before release. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1, memorize the 3 acronyms, SAST, static, white box, source code, DAST, dynamic, black box, running app, IST, interactive, gray box, agent inside. Tip 2, on the exam, if you see source code, think SAST. If you see running application from the outside, think DAST. If you see agent inside memory or runtime context, think IAST. Tip 3, in real life, use SAST early and often, DAST and IAST in staging, and consider IAST for accuracy where you can instrument the app. Now that you understand the application security pipeline, let us move to the attacker's vantage point, black box, gray box, and white box testing. Now let us talk about how much knowledge the tester has before starting. This is called the vantage point, the level of information given to the security tester. There are 3 levels, black box, gray box, and white box. Each one simulates a different type of attacker and gives you a different type of insight. Let us use the building analogy again. Black box is like a thief who has never seen the inside of the building. They do not know the floor plan. They do not know where the security cameras are. They do not know which doors are locked. They have to figure everything out by probing from the outside, trying doors, looking through windows, testing alarms. That is a blind external attacker. The black box tester receives no internal information. They start with only the public interface, the website, the login page, the API endpoints. The advantage is maximum realism. The disadvantage is that they may miss hidden internal assets or vulnerabilities that are only reachable after authentication. Gray box is like a thief who has some inside information. Maybe they have a map of the building, but not the camera locations. Or they have the key card codes, but not the guard schedule. That is a compromised user or an attacker who has done some reconnaissance. The gray box tester receives some internal information, usually credentials for a standard user, or a network diagram, or some source code. The advantage is that it balances external realism with internal efficiency. You can test authenticated areas without spending days trying to break in first. The disadvantage is that it does not fully simulate a completely blind attacker. White box is like you are given the complete architectural blueprints, the security system design, the guard schedules, and the key card codes. You know everything. Your job is to find every possible weakness, no matter how hidden. That is an insider with full knowledge or a penetration tester with full access to source code and configurations. The white box tester receives complete information, source code, architecture diagrams, configuration files, database schemas, and elevated credentials. The advantage is maximum test coverage. You can find deep structural design flaws that would be invisible from the outside. The disadvantage is that it may find vulnerabilities that are unlikely to be discovered by a real attacker, leading to a false sense of risk. From a business perspective, you use all three at different times. Black box for external-facing systems. Gray box for authenticated areas. White box for critical internal systems or for compliance requirements. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video. A penetration tester is given no information about the target system. They start with only the company's public website URL. What type of testing is this? A. White box. B. Gray box. C. Black box. D. Clear box. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. Black box. The tester has zero knowledge, like a thief outside the building with no plans. Option A, white box, means full knowledge. Option B, gray box, means partial knowledge. Option D, clear box, is not a standard term. So the correct answer is C. Let me ask you another question. A security team is testing an internal payroll application. They are given a standard user account, the application's source code, and the database schema. They are not given admin credentials. What type of testing is this? A. Black box. B. Gray box. C. White box. D. Red box. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Gray box. They have partial knowledge, a user account and the source code, but not full administrative access. Option A, black box, would mean no information. Option C, white box, would mean full knowledge including admin credentials. Option D, red box, is not standard. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A consultant is hired to perform a security assessment of a critical financial system. She receives the complete source code, network diagrams, firewall rules, and admin credentials. She is asked to find all possible vulnerabilities, including design flaws. What type of testing is this? A. Black box. B. Gray box. C. White box. D. External test. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. White box. Full knowledge maximizes coverage and reveals deep structural flaws. Option A, black box, would miss internal design flaws. Option B, gray box, provides only partial knowledge. Option D, external test, typically implies black box. So the correct answer is C. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company performs an annual penetration test. The tester is given a standard user account and told that the test will focus on privilege escalation and lateral movement. However, the tester is not given source code or network diagrams. Which vantage point does this represent? A. Black box. B. White box. C. Gray box. D. Zero knowledge. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. Gray box. The tester has partial knowledge, a user account, but not full internal visibility. Option A, black box, would mean no knowledge at all. Option B, white box, would mean full knowledge. Option D, zero knowledge, is another term for black box. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1, thinking black box testing is always better because it is realistic. Black box misses internal vulnerabilities that a real attacker might find through other means, like phishing for credentials or stealing source code. Trap 2, believing that white box testing finds every vulnerability. It finds vulnerabilities in design and code, but it might miss runtime configuration issues. Trap 3, forgetting that gray box is often the best balance for internal applications. It catches authenticated vulnerabilities without the time and cost of full white box. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1. Memorize the 3 levels with the building analogy: black box, thief outside, no plans, gray box, partial knowledge, some inside info, white box, full blueprints. Tip 2. On the exam, if you see no information, think black box. If you see some credentials or partial info, think gray box. If you see full source code and architecture, think white box. Tip 3. In real life, use black box for external testing, gray box for authenticated testing, and white box for critical systems. Now that you understand the attacker's vantage point, let us move to finding the gap versus forcing the breach, vulnerability assessment versus penetration testing. Now let us talk about 2 fundamental types of security testing that people often confuse: vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. They serve different purposes, they produce different results, and you need both. One finds the gap. The other forces the breach. Imagine you have a fence around your property. A vulnerability assessment is like walking along the fence with a clipboard, looking for holes, loose boards, or rusted spots. You note every weakness. You write down hole near the back gate, loose board on the east side, rusted lock on the west gate. Then you hand the list to the maintenance team. You have found the gaps, but you have not tried to climb through them. That is a vulnerability assessment. It is a passive, discovery-oriented process. The goal is to identify, quantify, and prioritize weaknesses. It answers the question, what vulnerabilities exist? The tester does not attempt to exploit them. The output is a report listing vulnerabilities, often with severity ratings. Vulnerability assessments are typically automated using scanners like Nessus, Qualys, or OpenVAS. The limitation is that they can produce false positives, reporting a vulnerability that is not actually exploitable in your specific environment. A penetration test is different. Imagine you hire someone to actually try to break in. They take your list of holes, but they also look for holes you might have missed. They try to climb through the hole near the back gate. If it is too small, they try to widen it. They try to pick the rusted lock. They try to squeeze under the loose board. They actually force the breach to prove that it can be done. That is a penetration test. It is an active, exploit-oriented process. The goal is to actually break in, to prove that a vulnerability is real and that an attacker could use it. It answers the question, what can an attacker actually achieve? The tester actively exploits weaknesses, moves laterally, escalates privileges, and attempts to reach sensitive data or systems. The output is a report of confirmed exploitable vulnerabilities, often with evidence of the breach, screenshots, logs, or captured data. Penetration tests are manual or semi-automated, and they take more time and skill. The limitation is that they are more expensive and cannot cover every possible vulnerability. From a business perspective, vulnerability assessments are for continuous improvement, you run them often to catch new weaknesses. Penetration tests are for validation, you run them periodically to prove that your defenses actually stop attackers. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video. A security team runs an automated scanner that identifies a missing patch on a server. The scanner does not attempt to exploit the missing patch. What is this called? A. Penetration test. B. Vulnerability assessment. C. Red team exercise. D. Exploit development. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Vulnerability assessment. Like walking the fence with a clipboard, the scanner finds the gap but does not try to force the breach. Option A, penetration test, would involve actively exploiting. Option C, red team exercise, is a larger adversary simulation. Option D, exploit development, is about writing code to take advantage of a vulnerability. So the correct answer is B. Let me ask you another question. A company hires a tester to see if they can break into the payroll system. The tester finds a missing patch, exploits it to gain access, then moves laterally to the HR database. What is this called? A. Vulnerability assessment. B. Penetration test. C. Compliance audit. D. Policy review. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Penetration test. Like the hired person who actually climbs through the hole, the tester actively forces the breach. Option A, vulnerability assessment, would have stopped at identifying the missing patch. Option C, compliance audit, checks against a standard. Option D, policy review, examines documents. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A vulnerability assessment reports a critical SQL injection flaw in a web application. A penetration test later confirms that the flaw is not actually exploitable because of an input validation control at the application layer. What does this demonstrate? A. The vulnerability assessment was wrong. B. The penetration test failed. C. Vulnerability assessments can produce false positives, penetration tests validate real risk. D. The web application is perfectly secure. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. Vulnerability assessments can produce false positives, penetration tests validate real risk. The scanner saw a potential pattern, the penetration test proved it was not actually exploitable. Option A is not accurate, the assessment identified a potential issue, but it lacked context. Option B is false, the penetration test correctly determined the flaw was not exploitable. Option D is false, there could be other issues. So the correct answer is C. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company runs quarterly vulnerability scans and annual penetration tests. The scans show hundreds of low-severity issues that the penetration test never exploits. Why does the company still need both? A. The penetration test replaces the need for scans. B. Scans find configuration drift and new vulnerabilities continuously, penetration tests validate that critical controls work against real attacks. C. Scans are only for compliance. D. Penetration tests are cheaper than scans. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Scans find configuration drift and new vulnerabilities continuously, penetration tests validate that critical controls work against real attacks. You need both, one for ongoing discovery, the other for periodic validation. Option A is false, a penetration test is a point-in-time check. Option C is false, scans are also for operational security. Option D is false, penetration tests are usually more expensive. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1, thinking that a vulnerability assessment is a penetration test. It is not. One finds gaps, the other forces breaches. Trap 2, believing that passing a penetration test means you have no vulnerabilities. A penetration test is limited in scope and time. Trap 3, running vulnerability assessments but never acting on the results. Finding the gap without fixing it is wasted effort. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1, memorize the distinction with the fence analogy. Vulnerability assessment walks with a clipboard, penetration test tries to climb through. Tip 2, on the exam, if you see identifies potential weaknesses without exploiting, think vulnerability assessment. If you see actively exploits to prove real risk, think penetration test. Tip 3, in real life, run vulnerability assessments continuously and penetration tests at least annually, especially after major changes. Now that you understand the difference between finding gaps and forcing breaches, let us move to adversarial collaboration, the red team, blue team, and purple team. Now let us talk about how security teams work together to test and improve defenses. You have 3 roles, red team, blue team, and purple team. Each has a different job, and they need each other. Adversarial collaboration means they do not work in isolation, they share information to get better. Imagine you are testing the security of a museum. The red team plays the role of the adversary. Their job is to break in, to find weaknesses, exploit vulnerabilities, bypass controls, and reach the target, like stealing a painting. They think like a real attacker. They use stealth, creativity, and persistence. In the museum analogy, the red team is the group of thieves trying to get past the guards, the locks, and the cameras. They do not tell the guards what they are planning. They just try to succeed. The blue team plays the role of the defender. Their job is to monitor, detect, and respond to attacks. They manage the security controls, the firewalls, the intrusion detection systems, the logs, the guards. In the museum analogy, the blue team is the security crew, the guards at the doors, the operators watching the cameras, the incident responders who rush to a triggered alarm. Their goal is to stop the thieves and to learn from every attempt. The purple team is not a separate team of people. It is a collaboration model. The purple team brings the red team and the blue team together to share information. After a red team exercise, the purple team facilitates a debrief. The red team explains how they got in. The blue team explains what they saw and what they missed. Together, they improve both the attack methods and the defense capabilities. In the museum analogy, the purple team is the meeting after a break-in attempt, where the thieves show the guards exactly which window they used, and the guards explain why the camera did not catch them. Both sides learn, and the museum becomes safer. From a business perspective, red team shows you where you are vulnerable. Blue team shows you how well you detect and respond. Purple team ensures that the lessons from one exercise actually improve the other. Without purple, red and blue stay in separate silos, and you do not get better. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video. A security team conducts an exercise where a group of testers attempts to breach the network without the knowledge of the defenders. The defenders monitor their normal tools and try to detect the attack. What are the two teams called? A. Red team, attackers, and blue team, defenders. B. Blue team, attackers, and red team, defenders. C. Purple team, attackers, and green team, defenders. D. White team, attackers, and black team, defenders. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is a, red team attacks, blue team defends. Option B reverses the roles. Option C and D are not standard. So the correct answer is A. Let me ask you another question. After a red team exercise, the attackers and defenders meet to share findings. The red team explains the vulnerabilities they exploited. The blue team explains what they detected and what they missed. Together, they update their security controls and detection rules. What is this process called? A. Red team exercise. B. Blue team exercise. C. Purple team collaboration. D. Black team assessment. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. Purple team collaboration. It is the process of bringing red and blue together to share information. Option A is only the attack. Option B is only the defense. Option D is not a standard term. So the correct answer is C. Now a third question. A blue team member notices that they never detected a red team's lateral movement during an exercise. After a purple team session, they learn that the red team used a specific living off the land technique that their monitoring tools missed. What is the primary benefit of this collaboration? A. The blue team can now tune their detection rules to catch that technique in the future. B. The red team agrees to stop using that technique. C. The blue team fires their monitoring vendor. D. The red team shares their passwords. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is A. The blue team can now tune their detection rules to catch that technique in the future. That is the purpose of purple team, to improve defense based on real attack data. Option B would make the exercise less realistic. Option C is extreme and unnecessary. Option D is not relevant. So the correct answer is A. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company runs a red team exercise every year. The red team always finds a way in, but the blue team never improves because they do not receive detailed feedback. Which team is missing? A. Green team. B. Purple team. C. Yellow team. D. Orange team. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Purple team. Without purple team collaboration, the defenders never learn from the attackers, and security does not improve. Options A, C, and D are not standard terms. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1, thinking that red team and blue team should never share information. That is the old, siloed way. Purple team shows that controlled collaboration improves both. Trap 2, believing that purple team is a separate group of people. It is not, it is a process or a mindset of collaboration. Trap 3, forgetting that purple team requires trust and psychological safety. Both sides must be willing to share mistakes without blame. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1, memorize the 3 roles: red, attackers; blue, defenders; purple, collaboration. Tip 2, on the exam, if you see attackers trying to breach, think red team. If you see defenders monitoring and responding, think blue team. If you see sharing findings to improve both, think purple team. Tip 3, in real life, conduct purple team sessions after every major red team exercise. Now that you understand adversarial collaboration, let us move to the immutable truth of logs, NTP sync, hash chaining, and worm storage. Logs are worthless if you cannot trust them. An attacker who breaks into your system will almost always modify logs to cover their tracks. That is why we need to make logs immutable, impossible to change or delete, even by an administrator. 3 technologies make this possible: NTP sync, hash chaining, and worm storage. Imagine you are keeping a handwritten log of entries and exits from a secure building. NTP sync ensures consistent timestamps. Imagine you have 10 guards at 10 different entrances. Each guard has their own watch. One watch is 5 minutes fast. Another is 10 minutes slow. When you try to reconstruct a break-in, you cannot tell which event happened first. NTP sync ensures that all system clocks are aligned to the same time reference. It is like giving every guard a watch that is synchronized to a single master clock. Without NTP sync, you cannot correlate events across servers. A log entry from your firewall might show an attack at 2:01, but your web server log shows the same attack at 2:05 because their clocks were off. You lose the ability to reconstruct the attack timeline. Hash chaining is tamper-proof sequencing. Imagine that each guard writes their entry in the log, then stamps it with a seal that depends on the previous entry. If someone tries to remove a page or change an entry, the seal on the next page breaks. That is hash chaining. Each log entry contains a cryptographic hash of the previous entry. If any entry is altered or deleted, the hash chain breaks, and you know that tampering occurred. Even if an attacker gains administrative access, they cannot modify a log entry without breaking the chain and leaving evidence. Worm storage is immutable media. Imagine that each page of the log, once written, is sealed inside a transparent, unbreakable glass case. You can read it, but you cannot change it or remove it. That is worm, write once, read many. Worm storage media allow data to be written but never modified or deleted after the fact. Even an administrator with full system access cannot alter logs stored on worm media. The logs are immutable. From a business perspective, immutable logs are essential for compliance and for forensic investigations. If you cannot prove that your logs are tamper-proof, a regulator or a court may reject them as evidence. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video. A security analyst notices that log entries from 2 different servers show different timestamps for the same attack. The firewall log shows the attack at 2:01 p.m., but the web server log shows it at 2:06 p.m. What is the most likely cause? A. The attacker deleted some logs. B. The system clocks are not synchronized using NTP. C. The logs are stored on worm media. D. The logs are hash-chained. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. The system clocks are not synchronized using NTP. Without NTP sync, timestamps are unreliable. Option A, deletion, would not shift timestamps. Option C, worm, prevents modification, not timestamp drift. Option D, hash chaining, detects tampering, it does not synchronize clocks. So the correct answer is B. Let me ask you another question. A company stores its audit logs on a worm storage system. An attacker gains administrative access and tries to delete the logs to cover their tracks. What happens? A. The attacker successfully deletes the logs. B. The logs cannot be deleted because worm prevents modification or deletion after writing. C. The logs are automatically backed up before deletion. D. The worm system alerts the attacker that deletion is not allowed, but then deletes them anyway. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. The logs cannot be deleted because worm prevents modification or deletion after writing. Option A is false. Option C is not a feature of worm. Option D is false, worm simply denies the deletion. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. Each log entry contains a cryptographic hash of the previous entry. An attacker modifies an entry from 3 days ago. How does the system detect this tampering? A. The hash chain will break because the modified entry's hash will no longer match the stored hash in the next entry. B. The NTP server will detect the time change. C. The worm storage will reject the modification. D. The logs are automatically emailed to a backup server. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is A. The hash chain will break because the modified entry's hash will no longer match the stored hash in the next entry. Hash chaining makes tampering detectable. Option B, NTP sync, affects timestamps, not tamper detection. Option C, worm, prevents deletion but does not detect modification of mutable logs. Option D is not related. So the correct answer is A. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company uses NTP sync, hash chaining, and worm storage for its logs. An attacker gains root access to the logging server. Which of the following can the attacker still do without detection? A. Delete the most recent log entry. B. Modify an entry from 1 year ago. C. Stop new logs from being written. D. Change the system clock on the logging server. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. Stop new logs from being written. The attacker can disrupt logging going forward, but they cannot alter or delete past immutable logs without detection. Option A, deletion is not possible with worm. Option B, modification would break the hash chain. Option D, changing the clock would be logged and NTP would correct it. So the correct answer is C. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1. Thinking that NTP sync is only about accuracy. It is also about security. Without it, you cannot correlate events during an incident. Trap 2. Believing that hash chaining prevents modification. It does not prevent it, it detects it. Trap 3. Forgetting that worm applies to the storage media, not to the network. Protect your log transmission with TLS. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1. Memorize the 3 technologies, NTP sync, consistent time, hash chaining, tamper detection, worm, immutable storage. Tip 2. On the exam, if you see timeline reconstruction, think NTP sync. If you see tamper-proof sequence, think hash chaining. If you see cannot delete or modify after writing, think worm. Tip 3. In real life, implement all 3 for critical logs. Now that you understand immutable logs, let us move to operational validation in production, synthetic transactions and real user monitoring. Now let us talk about how you monitor your applications in production. You cannot assume that because something worked in testing, it will work when real users are hammering it. 2 complementary approaches give you this visibility: synthetic transactions and real user monitoring. Imagine you own a restaurant. Synthetic transactions are like hiring actors to come into your restaurant, order specific meals, time how long it takes, and report back. They are not real customers, they are following a script. They order the same steak, sit at the same table, and use the same payment method every time. That is a synthetic transaction. It is a simulated user interaction that proactively tests your application's functionality and security controls. You run it on a schedule, every minute, every hour, to detect issues before real users are affected. The advantage is that you control exactly what is tested, and you can detect problems at 3 a.m. before any real customer complains. The disadvantage is that synthetic transactions only test what you script. They do not capture unexpected real-world behavior. Real user monitoring, or RUM, is different. Now imagine you watch your actual customers. You see that one table took 20 minutes to get their check. Another customer left a review saying the steak was cold. That is real user monitoring. RUM passively observes actual user traffic and behavior. It captures real-world performance, errors, and security events from live users. The advantage is that you see exactly what real users experience, including edge cases you never thought to script. The disadvantage is that you only see problems after a real user has already experienced them. You also have privacy considerations because you are collecting data about real people. From a business perspective, you need both. Synthetic transactions catch problems before customers see them. Real user monitoring tells you what customers are actually experiencing, including issues you did not anticipate. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video. A company runs a script every 5 minutes that logs into its web application, performs a search, adds an item to a cart, and checks out. This script is designed to detect failures before real users encounter them. What is this called? A. Real user monitoring, RUM. B. Synthetic transaction. C. Vulnerability assessment. D. Penetration test. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Synthetic transaction. It is a simulated user interaction run on a schedule. Option A, RUM, observes actual users. Option C, vulnerability assessment, finds security flaws. Option D, penetration test, is an active attack simulation. So the correct answer is B. Let me ask you another question. A company monitors the actual response times and error rates experienced by real users on their e-commerce site. They notice that users from a certain region are experiencing high latency. What is this called? A. Synthetic transaction. B. Real user monitoring, RUM. C. Load testing. D. Static analysis. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Real user monitoring. It captures real-world user experience. Option A, synthetic transaction, would only detect issues if the script happened to include that region. Option C, load testing, is a controlled stress test. Option D, static analysis, analyzes code. So the correct answer is B. Now a third question. A company uses synthetic transactions to monitor its login page every minute. However, users complain that they sometimes see an error after logging in that the synthetic transaction never caught. Why? A. The synthetic transaction only tests scripted paths and may miss issues that occur after login or only under specific conditions. B. The synthetic transaction is broken. C. the company should stop using synthetic transactions. D. Real user monitoring is always better. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is A. The synthetic transaction only tests scripted paths and may miss issues that occur after login or only under specific conditions. No synthetic script can cover every possible user action. Option B. The transaction is not necessarily broken. Option C. Stop using them, is wrong. Option D. RUM is always better, is false. So the correct answer is A. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company runs synthetic transactions every minute and real user monitoring continuously. A new software update causes the checkout page to crash for 5% of users, but only those using a specific browser version. The synthetic transaction did not catch this because it uses a different browser version. Which statement is true? A. Synthetic transactions are useless and should be replaced by RUM. B. RUM caught the issue after real users experienced it. Synthetic transactions should be updated to include that browser version. C. The company should stop monitoring. D. Only synthetic transactions matter. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. RUM caught the issue after real users experienced it. Synthetic transactions should be updated to include that browser version. Both tools are needed. Option A is false. Option C is false. Option D is false. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1. Thinking that synthetic transactions replace real user monitoring. They do not. Synthetic tests what you expect, RUM catches what you did not expect. Trap 2. Believing that real user monitoring alone is sufficient. RUM only detects issues after they have already affected real customers. Trap 3. Forgetting to update synthetic scripts when your application changes. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1. Memorize the 2 techniques, synthetic, simulated, proactive, scripted, and RUM, real users, reactive, unscripted. Tip 2. On the exam, if you see simulated user interaction on a schedule, think synthetic transactions. If you see real user behavior and performance, think RUM. Tip 3. In real life, use synthetic transactions for critical user journeys and RUM for broad visibility. Now that you understand operational validation in production, let us move to the tiers of assurance: cybersecurity, internal audit, external audit, and third-party audit. Now let us talk about the different types of assurance you can get over your security controls. Not all audits are the same. Each type has a different level of independence, scope, and credibility. You need to understand the differences for the exam and for vendor assessments. Let me walk you through the 4 tiers. First, cybersecurity, your own internal security team. This is your own team running vulnerability scans, configuration checks, and internal assessments. The advantage is deep native knowledge and rapid remediation. The disadvantage is potential internal bias and conflict of interest. Your team might unconsciously overlook issues or hesitate to report findings that reflect poorly on their own work. Cybersecurity assessments are good for continuous improvement but are not independent. Second, internal audit. This is a separate department within your organization, not part of the security or IT team. Internal auditors report to the board or audit committee, not to the CIO. They have deep knowledge of your processes because they work inside the company. They can remediate findings quickly. The disadvantage is still some potential for internal bias. They are still employees of the same organization, even if they are independent from IT. Internal audit is considered second-line assurance. Third, external audit. This is an independent firm hired to audit your organization. They have no internal relationships to bias them. External audits are often driven by specific contractual obligations, such as a customer requiring a SOC report before signing a contract. The advantage is an independent perspective. The disadvantage is that external audits are point in time and limited in scope. They verify defined business partner requirements, but they may not catch everything. Fourth, third-party regulatory audit. This is an audit performed by an external regulator or certification body, for example, a PCI-qualified security assessor for PCI DSS, or a certification body for ISO 27001. These are the most credible and unbiased because the auditor has no relationship with the organization and is bound by strict professional standards. The disadvantage is that third-party audits are expensive, infrequent, and often focused on compliance rather than security effectiveness. From a business perspective, you need all four at different times. Your own security team for continuous monitoring. Internal audit for periodic internal reviews. External audit for customer trust. Third-party audit for regulatory compliance. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video. A company hires an independent firm to audit its controls because a customer requires a SOC 2 report before signing a contract. What type of audit is this? A. Cybersecurity. B. Internal audit. C. External audit. D. Third-party regulatory audit. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. External audit. It is driven by contractual obligations and performed by an independent firm. Option A, cybersecurity, is internal. Option B, internal audit, is internal. Option D, third-party regulatory audit, is for compliance with a specific regulation. So the correct answer is C. Let me ask you another question. A PCI-qualified security assessor audits a company for compliance with PCI DSS. What type of audit is this? A. Cybersecurity. B. Internal audit. C. External audit. D. Third-party regulatory audit. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is D. Third-party regulatory audit. The QSA is an independent, certified auditor working under a regulatory standard. Option A and B are internal. Option C is external but not regulatory. So the correct answer is D. Now a third question. Which type of assessment has the highest degree of independence but is also the most expensive and infrequent? A. Cybersecurity. B. Internal audit. C. External audit. D. Third-party regulatory audit. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is D. Third-party regulatory audit. It is the most independent but also the most costly and least frequent. Option A has the least independence. Option B is more independent than cybersecurity but less than external. Option C is independent but not as rigorous as a regulatory audit. So the correct answer is D. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company's internal security team runs weekly vulnerability scans. The internal audit department reviews the security team's findings and processes every quarter. An external auditor validates the company's SOC 2 report annually. A QSA performs a PCI audit every 2 years. Which type of assessment is most likely to miss a rapidly changing risk, such as a new zero-day vulnerability? A. Cybersecurity. B. Internal audit. C. External audit. D. Third-party regulatory audit. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is D. Third-party regulatory audit. It is the least frequent, so it can miss changes that happen between audits. Cybersecurity scans run weekly and are most likely to catch a new vulnerability quickly. Option A, cybersecurity, is the most frequent. Option B, internal audit, is quarterly. Option C, external audit, is annual. So the correct answer is D. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1, thinking that a third-party regulatory audit guarantees security. It guarantees compliance with a standard, not that you are secure against current threats. Trap 2, believing that internal audit is completely independent. Internal audit is more independent than the security team, but they are still employees. Trap 3. Forgetting that your own security team's assessments are the most frequent and therefore the most responsive to new risks. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1. Memorize the 4 tiers: cybersecurity, internal, continuous, internal audit, internal, independent from IT, external audit, independent, contract-driven, third-party regulatory audit, most independent, least frequent. Tip 2. On the exam, if you see customer contract requirement, think external audit. If you see regulatory compliance, think third-party regulatory audit. Tip 3. In real life, use all 4 tiers. Do not let a passing annual audit convince you that you can stop internal monitoring. Now that you understand the tiers of assurance, let us move to translating SOC reports. Now let us talk about SOC reports. SOC stands for Service Organization Control. These reports are issued by independent auditors to give customers confidence in a service provider's internal controls. There are 5 main types: SOC 1 Type 1, SOC 1 Type 2, SOC 2 Type 1, SOC 2 Type 2, and SOC 3. Each serves a different audience and covers different controls. Let me explain each one. SOC 1 Type 1 focuses on internal controls over financial reporting. It is designed for service providers whose systems affect their customers' financial statements, for example, a payroll processor or a loan servicing platform. Type 1 reports are point in time. They describe the design of controls as of a specific date. The auditor tests whether the controls are suitably designed, but they do not test whether the controls actually operated effectively over a period of time. A SOC 1 Type 1 report tells you, as of this date, the controls were designed correctly. It does not tell you that they worked over time. SOC 1 Type 2 is the same scope, internal controls over financial reporting, but Type 2 reports cover a period of time, usually 6 months or a year. The auditor tests both the design and the operating effectiveness of the controls. A SOC 1 Type 2 report tells you, over the last 6 months, the controls were designed correctly and they operated effectively. This is much more valuable than a Type 1 report for understanding whether you can rely on the service provider. SOC 2 Type 1 focuses on the trust services criteria. There are 5 categories: security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, and privacy. Most SOC 2 reports cover at least security, and often others depending on the service provider. Type 1 reports are point in time. They describe the design of controls as of a specific date. A SOC 2 Type 1 report tells you, as of this date, the controls were designed to meet the security criteria. It does not test whether they worked over time. SOC 2 reports are the most common for technology and cloud service providers. SOC 2 Type 2 is the same scope as SOC 2, the trust services criteria, but Type 2 reports cover a period of time, typically 6 months or a year. The auditor tests both design and operating effectiveness. A SOC 2 Type 2 report tells you, over the last 6 months, the controls were designed correctly and they operated effectively to meet the security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, or privacy criteria. This is the report you want to ask for when evaluating a cloud vendor. It gives you evidence that their controls actually work over time. SOC 3 is a general use report. It is an executive summary of a SOC 2 Type 2 report, but it contains no confidential details, no description of specific controls, no test results, no system configuration details. It is designed to be publicly distributed, such as posted on a company's website. A SOC 3 report includes the auditor's opinion and says that the company has passed a SOC 2 audit, but it does not provide the detailed evidence. SOC 3 is useful for marketing and public trust, but not for detailed vendor risk assessment. From a business perspective, when you are evaluating a vendor, you should request a SOC 2 Type 2 report. It gives you the most comprehensive evidence over time. SOC 1 is for financial controls. SOC 3 is for public consumption. Never accept a SOC 2 Type 1 or SOC 1 Type 1 alone for a critical vendor. Those are point in time and do not prove that controls actually worked. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video. A company is evaluating a payroll service provider. They need assurance that the provider's controls over financial reporting are effective over a period of time. Which SOC report should they request? A. SOC 2 Type 1. B. SOC 2 Type 2. C. SOC 1 Type 2. D. SOC 3. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. SOC 1 Type 2. SOC 1 is for financial reporting controls, and Type 2 covers a period of time. Option A and B are for trust services criteria. Option D is a public summary. So the correct answer is C. Let me ask you another question. A cloud storage vendor wants to publicly demonstrate that they have passed a SOC audit without revealing confidential system details. Which SOC report should they publish on their website? A. SOC 1 Type 1. B. SOC 2 Type 2. C. SOC 3. D. SOC 1 Type 2. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. SOC 3. It is designed for public distribution. Options A, B, and D contain confidential details. So the correct answer is C. Now a third question. A SOC 2 Type 1 report states that as of June 30th, the vendor's controls were suitably designed. What critical information is missing from this report? A. Whether the vendor has a website. B. Whether the controls actually operated effectively over a period of time. C. Whether the vendor uses encryption. D. Whether the vendor has a SOC 3 report. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Whether the controls actually operated effectively over a period of time. Type 1 reports are point in time, they do not test operating effectiveness. Option A is irrelevant. Option C might be part of the design, but Type 1 does not test operation. Option D is circular. So the correct answer is B. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company receives a SOC 2 Type 2 report from a cloud provider. The report covers a 6-month period and states that the auditor found no exceptions. However, during that same period, the provider had a public breach due to a misconfigured database. How is this possible? A. The auditor lied. B. The breach occurred outside the scope of the SOC 2 trust services criteria that the report covered. C. SOC 2 reports are meaningless. D. The provider is lying about the breach. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. The breach occurred outside the scope of the trust services criteria that the report covered. SOC 2 reports only cover the controls that the provider included in the scope. Option A is unlikely. Option C is false. Option D is false. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1, thinking that SOC 2 Type 2 guarantees security. It guarantees that controls were designed and operated effectively within the scope of the audit. It does not guarantee that the provider is unhackable. Trap 2, accepting a Type 1 report instead of a Type 2. Type 1 tells you nothing about whether controls worked over time. Always ask for Type 2 for critical vendors. Trap 3, confusing SOC 1, financial controls, with SOC 2, trust services criteria. They serve different purposes. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1, memorize the 5 SOC report types: SOC 1, financial controls; SOC 2, trust services criteria; SOC 3, public summary. Type 1, point in time; Type 2, over time. Tip 2, on the exam, if you see financial reporting, think SOC 1. If you see security, availability, processing integrity, confidentiality, privacy, think SOC2. If you see public distribution, think SOC3. Tip 3. In real life, always request a SOC2 Type 2 report from cloud vendors. Review the scope carefully. Now that you understand SOC reports, let us move to the metrics of risk, KPIs and KRIs. Now let us talk about how you measure security performance and risk. You need two types of metrics, KPIs and KRIs. They answer different questions, and you need both. KPI looks backward at what you have already done. KRI looks forward at what might happen. Let me explain the difference, then give you concrete examples so you can see how they work in real life. KPI stands for Key Performance Indicator. Think of this as your rearview mirror. It measures how well your security operations and controls performed over time. It answers the question, how did we do? KPIs are historical. You use them to track trends, spot areas that need improvement, and report to management on the performance of your security program. Let me walk through the most common KPIs. First, mean time to detect, or MTTD. This is the average time from when an attack or incident occurs to when your team actually detects it. If your MTTD was 48 hours last quarter and it is now 24 hours, your detection capability is improving. That is a good sign. Second, mean time to respond, or MTTR. This is the average time from detection to containment and remediation. If you detect an incident but take 3 weeks to clean it up, your MTTR is too high. You want this number as low as possible. Third, percentage of endpoints patched within a certain window, say 7 days. If you have 1,000 laptops and 950 of them are patched within the window, that is 95%. This KPI tells you whether you are meeting your patch policy. Fourth, number of failed login attempts per user per day. A sudden spike across many users could indicate a brute force attack. Tracking this over time tells you if your authentication controls are holding up or if you are under active assault. KRI stands for Key Risk Indicator. Now think of this as your windshield. It looks forward. A KRI measures changes in your risk exposure. It answers the question, is our risk getting better or worse? KRIs help you anticipate potential incidents before they happen. Let me give you some common examples of KRIs. First, a surge in external port scans against your perimeter. If your firewall logs show a sudden increase in scans from unknown sources, your exposure to a potential attack is rising. You have not been breached yet, but you are being probed. That is a leading indicator. Second, the number of legacy systems approaching end of life. Imagine you have a server that will stop receiving security patches in 3 months. Every week that passes, the risk of that system being exploited grows. This KRI tracks that trend. Third, the percentage of employees who have not completed security awareness training. If that percentage goes up, your risk of a successful phishing attack goes up. It is a direct leading indicator. Fourth, the number of critical vulnerabilities older than 30 days. If this number grows, your risk of exploitation increases. A rising KRI tells you to prioritize remediation before an attacker finds those holes. Fifth, the volume of sensitive data being transmitted to unknown external IP addresses. A sudden spike could indicate data exfiltration in progress. This KRI helps you spot a breach earlier, sometimes before it is even confirmed. From a business perspective, KPIs tell you how your security team is performing. KRIs tell you whether your risk posture is getting better or worse. If your KRIs are climbing, your KPIs may soon suffer. You use KRIs to make proactive decisions. You use KPIs to evaluate past performance. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video. A security dashboard shows that the average time to detect an intrusion has gone from 48 hours to 24 hours over the past 6 months. What type of metric is this? A. KRI. B. KPI. C. SLA. D. ROI. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B, KPI. It measures performance over time. Mean time to detect is a classic KPI. Option A, KRA, looks forward at risk. Option C, SLA, is a contract term. Option D, ROI, measures financial return. So the correct answer is B. Let me ask you another question. A security analyst notices that the number of external port scans against the company's firewall has tripled in the last week. What does this indicate, and what type of metric is it? A, KPI, the firewall is working well. B, KPI, the security team is doing a great job. C, KRA, the company's exposure to a potential attack has increased. D, KRA, the company has already been breached. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C, KRI. A surge in port scans is a forward-looking indicator that your exposure is increasing. It does not mean you have been breached. Option A and B are incorrect because they are KPIs looking backward. Option D is incorrect because port scans are not a confirmed breach. So the correct answer is C. Now a third question. A company tracks the percentage of critical vulnerabilities patched within 30 days. Last quarter it was 85%. This quarter it dropped to 70%. What does this tell us? A, this is a KRI and it indicates that risk is decreasing. B, this is a KPI and it indicates that patch performance is worsening, which will likely increase risk. C, this is a KRI and it indicates that the company is secure. D, this is a KPI and it has no relation to risk. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B, this is a KPI, performance indicator, and it indicates that patch performance is worsening, which will likely increase risk. The metric itself is a KPI because it measures past performance. A worsening KPI often signals an increasing KRI. Option A says risk is decreasing, which is false. Option C says the company is secure, false. Option D says it has no relation to risk, false. So the correct answer is B. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has the following metrics. First, mean time to detect has dropped from 18 hours to 12 hours. Second, the number of unpatched critical vulnerabilities older than 60 days has grown from 20 to 45. Third, the percentage of employees who clicked on a phishing simulation link has dropped from 15% to 8%. Fourth, weekly external port scans have increased from 5,000 to 10,000. Which of these is the best forward-looking indicator of increasing breach risk? A, mean time to detect decreasing. B, unpatched critical vulnerabilities increasing. C, phishing click rate decreasing. D, port scans increasing. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B, unpatched critical vulnerabilities increasing. That is a direct leading indicator of risk. Open critical vulnerabilities are a clear path to breach. Option A, MTTD decreasing, is positive. Option C, phishing click rate decreasing, is positive. Option D, port scans increasing, is a warning, but unpatched vulnerabilities are a more certain risk. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1, confusing KPIs with KRIs. KPIs look backward at performance. KRIs look forward at risk. Trap 2, tracking too many metrics. Focus on a few meaningful indicators. Trap 3, ignoring leading indicators and only looking at lagging indicators. By the time your KPIs show a problem, you may already have had a breach. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1, remember the distinction, KPI is your rearview mirror, KRI is your windshield. Tip 2, on the exam, if you see a metric that measures how well we did, think KPI. If you see a metric that measures exposure or trend, think KRI. Tip 3, in real life, establish baseline values for your KRIs. When a KRI exceeds the baseline by a certain threshold, trigger a risk review. Now that you understand the metrics of risk, let us move to the death of the static checklist, the compliance gap, continuous control monitoring, and breach and attack simulation. Now let us talk about why the old way of security assessments is dying. The old way was a static checklist. You printed a list of controls. You walked around and checked boxes. Firewall installed. Check. Encryption enabled. Check. Antivirus running. Check. Then you declared yourself compliant and moved on. But that checklist is a lie. Attackers do not care about your checkboxes. They exploit the gaps between controls, the assumptions you made, and the things your checklist never asked. That gap between passing a compliance audit and actually being secure is called the compliance gap. Let me explain the compliance gap with a simple example. A compliance checklist asks, do you have a firewall? You answer yes. But the checklist does not ask, is your firewall properly configured? Does it block all unnecessary inbound ports? Did someone add a hidden rule last month? The attacker does not care that you have a firewall. They care about the misconfiguration. The compliance audit said you passed. The attacker proved you failed. That distance between the audit result and the real security posture is the compliance gap. Organizations with perfect audit scores get breached all the time because they have a compliance program, not a security program. So how do we close that gap? You cannot close it with another checklist. You need continuous, real-time methods. That brings us to the first approach. Continuous Control Monitoring, or CCM. Instead of checking your controls once a year, you monitor them continuously, in real time or near real time. You automate the collection of evidence. You know immediately if a control fails. For example, instead of manually checking every quarter that antivirus is running on all endpoints, you have a tool that tells you the second any endpoint stops reporting. Instead of spot-checking firewall rules once a year, you have a tool that detects unauthorized changes within minutes. Instead of assuming that backup jobs are running, your monitoring tool alerts you the moment a backup fails. CCM moves you from point-in-time compliance to continuous assurance. You no longer wonder if your controls worked last month. You know they are working right now, or you know immediately when they stop. But knowing that a control has failed is not enough. You also need to know whether an attacker could bypass your controls even when they are configured correctly. That brings us to the second approach. Breach and Attack Simulation, or BAS. A traditional penetration test happens once or twice a year. A human tester tries to break in, but they only test the paths they think of, and they only test at that specific moment. BAS is different. It is automated and continuous. You deploy a software agent inside your environment. That agent runs simulations of attacker techniques, using the same tools, tactics, and procedures that real attackers use. It tests your defenses, your detection, and your response. It tries to steal credentials, move laterally, escalate privileges, and exfiltrate simulated data. And it does this constantly, every day, without wearing out your team. BAS finds gaps before attackers do. If a new attack technique is discovered in the wild, you can update your BAS tool to test for it immediately. You do not have to wait for your next penetration test. BAS is like having a red team on staff, running exercises 24/7, but automated. Now, let me put these three concepts together. The compliance gap is the problem. CCM tells you whether your controls are working right now. BAS tells you whether an attacker can defeat your controls even when they are working. You need all three to move beyond the static checklist. From a business perspective, the compliance gap is why organizations with perfect audit scores still get breached. They passed the checklist but failed the real attack. Closing that gap requires CCM and BAS, not more checklists. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video. A company passes its annual compliance audit with 0 findings. 3 months later, they suffer a breach. An attacker exploited a misconfigured firewall rule that was not covered by the audit checklist. What is this called? A. Compliance failure. B. Compliance gap. C. False negative. D. Penetration test. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Compliance gap. The distance between passing the audit and being secure is the compliance gap. Option A, compliance failure, would be if they failed the audit. Option C, false negative, is a test error. Option D, penetration test, is an active attack simulation. So the correct answer is B. Let me ask you another question. An organization deploys a tool that continuously checks that all servers have endpoint detection installed and running. If any server falls out of compliance, the tool alerts the security team within minutes. What is this practice called? A. Penetration test. B. Vulnerability assessment. C. Continuous control monitoring. D. Compliance audit. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. Continuous control monitoring. It is automated, continuous, and checks control effectiveness in real time. Option A, penetration test, is active exploitation. Option B, vulnerability assessment, is periodic. Option D, compliance audit, is point in time. So the correct answer is C. Now a third question. A security team runs automated simulations every week that mimic the tactics of real attackers: credential theft, lateral movement, privilege escalation. The simulations test whether their defenses would detect and block these techniques. What is this called? A. Vulnerability scan. B. Penetration test. C. Breach and attack simulation. D. Compliance checklist. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. Breach and attack simulation. It is continuous, automated, and tests against real attacker techniques. Option A, vulnerability scan, finds weaknesses but does not exploit them. Option B, penetration test, is manual and periodic. Option D, compliance checklist, is static. So the correct answer is C. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has a perfect compliance record for 2 years. Their auditor checks that they have a firewall, intrusion detection, antivirus, and a patch management process. Yet they suffer a breach through a 0-day vulnerability in a third-party component that their checklist never required them to track. Which of the following would have most likely prevented this breach? A. More frequent compliance audits. B. Continuous control monitoring of all software components and breach and attack simulation that includes third-party exploit testing. C. Deleting the checklist entirely. D. Adding the 0-day to next year's checklist. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Continuous control monitoring of all software components and breach and attack simulation that includes third-party exploit testing. Option A, more frequent audits, would still miss what the checklist does not cover. Option C, deleting the checklist, is not the answer. Option D, adding the 0-day to next year's checklist, is too late. So the correct answer is B. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1, believing that passing an audit means you are secure. Audits test a sample at a point in time. Attackers test everything, all the time. Trap 2, thinking that once a control is implemented, it stays effective. Configuration drift happens. People make changes. Controls degrade. Trap 3, focusing only on compliance for the sake of passing an audit. Compliance is a baseline, not a goal. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1, implement continuous control monitoring for your critical controls. Do not wait for the annual audit to find a failure. Tip 2. Use breach and attack simulation tools to continuously test your defenses. Tip 3. Shift your mindset from "Are we compliant?" to "Are we secure?" Compliance checklists are a starting point, not an ending point. Now that you understand the depth of the static checklist, let us move to resilience and restitution. Now let us talk about the final piece of proving your defenses. Resilience is your ability to withstand an attack and keep operating. Restitution is your ability to recover after an attack and return to normal. You can have the best firewalls, the most sophisticated detection, and the most rigorous testing. But if your backups do not restore, or if your disaster recovery plan fails, or if you restore corrupted data, you are still in trouble. Resilience and restitution are about surviving the breach and recovering your operations. 3 things matter here. First, verified backup restoration. Second, disaster recovery testing aligned with your business impact analysis. Third, cryptographic verification of restored data. Let me walk you through each one. First, within resilience and restitution, a backup is meaningless without a verified test restore. I cannot tell you how many organizations dutifully back up their systems every night but never test whether those backups actually work. They assume that because the backup software said success, the data is recoverable. That is a dangerous assumption. The only way to know that a backup is valid is to restore it. Not just a file or two, a full restore into a test environment. You need to verify that the data is complete, that the restoration process works, and that the restored system actually functions. Do this regularly. If you wait until a disaster to test your backups, you are gambling your entire business. This is a core part of restitution. You cannot restitute what you cannot restore. Second, within resilience and restitution, disaster recovery testing must map the recovery time objective, RTO, against the business impact analysis, BIA. Your RTO is your target time to restore critical systems. Your BIA tells you which systems are critical and how long the business can survive without them. The two must match. If your BIA says that your order processing system must be back online within 2 hours, but your disaster recovery plan takes 6 hours to restore it, you have a problem. Your business is not resilient. The only way to know if your RTO is achievable is to test it. Run a disaster recovery exercise. Simulate a data center failure. Measure how long it actually takes to restore. Compare that to your RTO. If you consistently miss your RTO, you need to change your recovery strategy, faster replication, different technologies, or a different recovery site. Do not wait for a real disaster to discover that your plan does not work. This is the resilience part, ensuring that your recovery capability meets business needs. Third, within resilience and restitution, reconstitution requires automated cryptographic verification. After you restore from backups, how do you know that the restored data has not been tampered with? An attacker who compromised your systems could have modified your backups before you discovered the breach. If you simply restore without checking, you might restore the attacker's backdoor along with your data. That is not a clean restitution. The solution is cryptographic verification. Before the attack, you generate and store a secure hash, for example, an SHA-256 hash, of your critical data. This is your immutable pre-attack baseline. After you restore, you compute the hash of the restored data and compare it to the baseline. If they match, you know the data is exactly as it was before the attack. If they do not match, you have evidence of tampering, and you need to investigate before putting the system back into production. This verification must be automated. You cannot manually hash terabytes of data. Your backup and restore tools should support this cryptographic verification. This is the restitution part, ensuring that what you restore is trustworthy. From a business perspective, these 3 steps are the difference between recovering from a breach and going out of business. A backup that has never been tested is not a backup. A disaster recovery plan that has never been exercised is not a plan. A restored system that has not been verified is not trustworthy. Now, let me ask you a question. Pause the video. A company runs daily backups but has never performed a full test restore. A ransomware attack encrypts their primary database. They attempt to restore from backups, but the restore fails because the backup files are corrupted. What went wrong? A. Lack of backups. B. Lack of tested restores. C. Lack of RTO. D. Lack of BA. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is B. Lack of tested restores. The company had backups, but they never verified that those backups could actually be restored. Option A, they had backups. Option C and D are not the direct cause. So the correct answer is B. Let me ask you another question. A company's business impact analysis states that their e-commerce platform must be restored within 4 hours. Their disaster recovery plan takes 8 hours to restore the platform from tape backups. What is the primary issue? A. RTO is too short. B. BIA is wrong. C. RTO is not aligned with the BIA. D. Backups are too large. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. RTO is not aligned with the BIA. The business needs 4 hours, but the recovery plan takes 8. Option A, the RTO is not too short, it is the requirement. Option B, the BIA is likely correct. Option D is not the primary issue. So the correct answer is C. Now a third question. Before an attack, a company stores an SHA-256 hash of their customer database on an immutable worm system. After restoring from backups following a breach, they compute the hash of the restored database. It does not match the pre-attack hash. What does this indicate? A. The restore failed. B. The backup was corrupted. C. The data was tampered with before or during the backup. D. The hash algorithm is wrong. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is C. The data was tampered with before or during the backup. The hash mismatch indicates that the restored data is not identical to the pre-attack baseline. Option A, the restore could have succeeded but the data is wrong. Option B, corruption is possible, but tampering is the key concern. Option D is unlikely. So the correct answer is C. Now, if you are ready, here is a more challenging question. A company has tested backups, a disaster recovery plan that meets their RTOs, and cryptographic verification of restored data. Their primary data center is destroyed by a fire. They restore services at their secondary site within the RTO. The restored data passes the hash verification. However, the secondary site does not have enough network bandwidth to handle customer traffic, and the business suffers significant revenue loss. What did the company fail to test? A. Backup restoration. B. RTO alignment. C. Cryptographic verification. D. Capacity of the recovery site. Pause. Welcome back. The correct answer is D. Capacity of the recovery site. Restoring within RTO is not enough. The recovery site must also have enough capacity to support business operations. Option A, backups were tested. Option B, RTO was met. Option C, verification passed. So the correct answer is D. Now, let me share 3 traps even experienced professionals fall into. Trap 1, testing backups only by restoring a single file. Test full restores regularly. Trap 2, assuming that a disaster recovery plan that worked last year still works today. Systems change. Test your plan at least annually. Trap 3, focusing only on technical recovery and forgetting about business capacity. Restoring a database is not enough if your recovery site has no network bandwidth. Here are 3 tips to lock this in. Tip 1, schedule automated test restores of your backups at least quarterly. Tip 2, conduct a full disaster recovery exercise at least once a year. Involve the business teams, not just IT. Tip 3, implement cryptographic verification for all critical data stores. Store baseline hashes on immutable worm media. Now that you understand resilience and restitution, let us move to the conclusion of Domain 6. Security assessment is not a project. It is a posture. You do not test your defenses once and then check the box. You test them continuously, because attackers never stop testing you. Think about the acronym you already know from other domains: govern, identify, protect, detect, respond, recover. That is the NIST cybersecurity framework. But notice where assessment fits. You cannot identify risks without testing. You cannot protect without validating that your controls work. You cannot detect if you never test your detection. You cannot respond effectively if you have never practiced. And you cannot recover if you have never verified your backups. Assessment is the thread that runs through every single one of those functions. Let me leave you with 3 truths. First, trust but verify is dead. The only rule is verify, then verify again. Never assume that a control is working just because you installed it. Never assume that a backup is good just because the software said success. Never assume that your team will respond correctly just because you have a plan on paper. Prove it. Test it. Exercise it. Second, compliance is not security. You can pass every audit and still be breached. Auditors check boxes. Attackers exploit gaps. The compliance gap is where breaches live. Close it with continuous validation. Third, security is a continuous loop, not a one-time event. You assess, you find gaps, you fix them, you assess again. The moment you stop testing, you start falling behind. Attackers do not take breaks. Neither can you. So here is my challenge to you. When you go back to your organization, do not ask, are we compliant? Ask, have we proven it? When did you last restore a backup from start to finish? When did you last run a disaster recovery drill? When did you last test your detection tools against a real attack simulation? When did you last verify that your logs are immutable? If you cannot answer those questions with confidence, you are not secure. You are only assuming. Proving your defenses is hard work. It takes time, resources, and discipline. But it is the only work that matters. Because in the end, your auditors will not be the ones explaining to your customers why their data was stolen. You will. So go prove your defenses. Test what you think is secure. Validate what you assume is working. And never stop. You have completed Domain 6. I am proud of the work you put in. Now go take that mindset into your exam and into your career. I will see you in the next domain.